able to be a light for somebody and have them take that, and not because I know more or because I know best, but simply of like shining a light up the hill and getting to watch them climb and do those hard things and accomplish difficult things while I'm holding the light. Man, like I don't know if there's anything more for me, more inspiring and more moving than that.
There's a lot of clients that reach out that are already like high performing states, that they're like, dude, I'm actually pretty good mentally, I just want to go to the next level. And we do.
Yeah.
Right? It's not always like, I'm actually pretty self-aware, I've already kind of worked through some stuff. That's fun. Like, part of this job with these sales guys is they have limiting beliefs, and we break through them.
Let's go. Welcome, guys.
What's up, guys?
You guys are here at the SolarPulse podcast with Josh and Joe.
Can everybody hear everybody?
Yeah,
all
definitely.
systems go.
Everybody sounds clear as ice. But Josh and I wanted to do an episode on mental health in the sales industry, in the solar industry, and mindset. And you guys, of course, are the first ones that came to mind. My boy Jens Bunnell in the house. We got from Momentum, who's really works on literally mental health and mindset for the solar industry and more. What's up, Jens?
What's up, fellas? It's good to be here. So pumped.
And then we got, of course, the Instagram famous, the sales therapist, Mr. Corey Clark. Thanks for being here, Corey.
What's up, guys? Hey, stoked to be here. Always happy to chat about mental health, man.
Hell yeah. First of all, have you guys met each other before, Jens and Corey?
Oh, yeah. Me and Jens are homies, man.
Homies, brothers
like
with the same mission.
Everybody's friends with Jens.
Same mission.
He's an easy one to love, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. You guys, speaking of somebody to love, you guys know Josh King? Have you guys met him before?
I have not.
I don't think so.
What are we doing?
It's crazy.
How's
you guys should
everyone
know this guy. Virtual solar sales master, as one of the largest following in virtual solar sales in the industry. You guys got to know this guy, Josh King here.
Going on, crew?
Nice to meet you, Josh.
You guys as well.
Yo, real quick, before we get started, obviously, I know you guys a little bit. I know Jens really, really well. Let's let the audience, maybe if they don't know you, what you guys came from, what you do. Jens, I know that you have an amazing background and you have an amazing story. I don't know how much you want to get into it, but just kind of give a little bit of background how you got into the position you're doing now.
Yeah, man, that is very much so. I'm sure Corey would agree. On both sides, for anybody, it's kind of a loaded question to
yes, I know,
to kind of succinctly put it. I started my career in the corporate world. Graduated undergrad in business and started at Goldman Sachs. I was there for a while, and while I was at Goldman Sachs, my wife asked me a question that put me on like a new trajectory of just essentially where I got to here, but it really got me thinking, and so I quit Goldman and went and got a corporate sales job. Worked about 40 hours less than I was, and dove into I had a dream to be a speaker and started speaking to student athletes and working with student athletes. And during that time working corporate sales, I hit rock bottom in my life, and put me down a path of addiction recovery and trauma recovery and personal and marriage and group therapy and all of that for weeks upon weeks, turned into months, turned into years. And I learned so much, and everything changed. Started breaking records in the company that I was in. I had more fulfillment than I ever had in my marriage and with God, and all of those things has changed everything in my life. And so it gave me that thought that, like, man, there's more that I could do than just speak. So I started to build a program, started working with student athletes. That took me to the University of Tennessee and started working with their athletes, and got my master's in business there. And while I was getting my master's in my MBA, I transitioned in the door-to-door space, and flew from Tennessee to Utah, had a list of names, and just started going and essentially pitching the program, pitching the thought, what I had, and kind of refining it, and walked away with the first client. And it's just been a role since then. It's been an absolute blast. I'm pursuing my PhD in psychology right now. I'll be finishing that in a couple years. We've we've grown and had a beautiful opportunity to support the door-to-door space on the mental and emotional side, and that's essentially what's gotten us here. We have a full team of performance coaches and psychologists. We support everything from the individual to the corporation, and that's the story, man. That's where we're at here right now. We support thousands of reps at this point, and it's just been a blessing.
What
Man,
similarities have you found between high-level athletes and high-level sales guys?
Oh man, dude, it's like one of the most seamless transitions. I mean, I'm sure Corey's felt this too. There's a lot of dudes and girls that will come into the door-to-door space that are athletes, and it's high performance, high demand, performance based, expectation,
Yep.
all of that. I would say, unless you're a professional athlete, it's the athletics isn't what puts like food on the table. And so for the door-to-door side, there's a whole other layer of anxiety and stress and all of that, because it's your livelihood, it's your survival.
I've always loved the similarities of like people who are intrinsically motivated to be more successful than the average person. It's like, is there a formula to figure out if we can boil those things down to a handful of things between all these high level guys, and then just get everyone to focus on those 5 things, regardless of the industry or the occupation? Interesting little, I don't know, what would you call it? Motivation science, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
There's definitely some similarities. I'd say you probably could find those 5 things. Door to door, though, specifically also has some really unique struggles and constraints that sometimes, like, it's a wild industry, man. So like there's just things I think people experience mentally and emotionally in door to door that you don't really get anywhere else, and or just in sales in general. So but that's what makes it such a cool niche too. But
Well, Corey, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to being the sales therapist on Instagram, baby.
yeah, so I worked in sales all through undergrad and then through grad school. That was the way that and most of that was door to door, and that was the way, we made money and made it happen. And I always wanted to become a therapist, and so that's what I was pursuing. And so sales for me was always a means to end. Always was a pretty high performer, and so I kept doing it and stayed in it, and it paid for everything. And just, honestly, it wasn't really until becoming a therapist that I was like, holy frick, dude, this is really what the sales world needs, right? Like not just your do your morning routine, be positive, do the thing, whatever. Like the sales has a very unique ability to target parts of ourselves that most jobs just won't, right? Like sales and entrepreneurship, I think those are the 2 things that will really target our biggest insecurities and our biggest parts of ourselves that, like, hey, it's on the forefront. So that's why a lot of people in sales, they struggle mentally and emotionally on a different level, where, like, at one point they're in this learning phase and they're doing really good, and then like 2 months later you just see and they're like absolutely exhausted. And it's because honestly they're facing real insecurities that really they haven't been pushed to have to face, and so most of the time. And so it wasn't really until becoming a therapist that I was just I was seeing like 20 clients in grad school as a practicing therapist and becoming a therapist, and also knocking like 20 hours a week. And I was just grinding. Like we were poor, is what was making money. I graduated debt free, all because of sales, whatever. But it was doing these 2 worlds at the same time, where I was just like, man, this is a thing. And honestly, like with only knocking, not even a ton of time, I was making the most money I ever made in sales. And it was really just because of the internal work, that's the stuff I was going on and working through, and similar to Jen's in that way. And it's funny, like, and then from there, I just kind of started the business, and I just started pitching people and said, hey, this is the thing, I'm doing it. And just same, it just kind of popped off, and it happened. And it's funny, like Jen says, like, he's working with thousands of clients now, and same, it's crazy that there could be 10 more of us, I think, in this industry, truthfully. And that's why, honestly, me and Jens have connected on a pretty deep level, and we're just friends. And I think we support each other a lot, because we're both scaling, because it's crazy.
You said you use
That's certainly a needed aspect to it, right?
real quick, you use sales to get past college, but your therapy could be on anything, right? Like, it doesn't mean I have to go to sales therapy now because that's what I use. So why is it like you're drawn? I know you obviously did sales, but that doesn't mean you have to stay in sales. So
Yeah,
why are you staying doing therapy and sales as opposed to there's so many genres out there?
dude, well, a couple of reasons. I guess one, I have this belief that like God will send down ideas to people's minds, right? And people have then a choice to execute or not. And if they don't execute, it'll just leave that mind and it'll choose another mind. And I feel like it was an idea. It was like a inspiration, and I executed. And at this point, I'm actually a licensed marriage and family therapist. The whole point of becoming a therapist was to start like a couples practice and
Yeah,
go
that's what I
that
was
route.
asking.
And
Yeah.
I haven't. I mean, I'll probably satisfy that part of me at some point in my life, but right now, I've just fell in love working with sales professionals, man. Like I'm working with dudes that are, the cool part is like I'm working with dudes that are like 20, 21, 22, and I'm like, bro, do you realize the work that we're doing is changing whole trajectories for you? Like most people that go to therapy traditionally are doing it when they're 30, 40. I mean, you get a lot of younger people too, but a lot of people are doing it when they're at this like phase of life, that this point where they have to finally address it, where I'm like, bro, if we can do it now, like you're saving yourself years, and you're accomplishing years in advance than most people. And so for me, like I see it as an honor to be able to target a population that like, and make therapy cool. Like it took a minute to get traction, but then people are like, oh, Corey's dope, like let me work with them, you know. But now I get to work with dudes that they're like doing work before they even really need it, I guess, you know. And that's an honor.
Would you say that, because Jens, you mentioned like student athletes, and then we're talking about sales. Like that's a very, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say that's a different mindset than like marriage counseling. Of course, his fundamentals are probably the same, but you're probably interacting with a lot of like the motivational issues, like I had a down month. How do I do more? How do I be better? How do I keep a clear head? Would maybe the reason that you're sticking in the sales thing is if I was in that niche is because I would like being around people and seeing them. Like I train a bunch of guys, right? And I love when I train guys, they see the results double. I love that, So do you get a little kick of that motivation as well when you're around these high performers, especially when they implement what you say and they're like, oh my God, dude, holy shit, like my performance has increased just by changing that one little piece of how I think about things. You find that you get that little kick of motivation yourself?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll go, and I'd love to hear Corey's thoughts on this too, because I'm sure it's pretty dang similar.
Yeah.
One of the I had like a semester left in my undergrad. I wasn't dating anybody. I had no idea what I was gonna do, and I was graduating. And something I learned probably 6 months prior to that, though, is what I did know is that what would get me out of bed at any point, at any time, is that if I could provide some sort of advice, guidance, impact, knowledge, skill, whatever, on somebody's life, and then to see them take that and have it benefit theirs. And not for them to turn around and be like, oh, like Jens is great or whatever. No, because I could see them like something that I did impacted them in a positive way. And so that's why I went to Goldman Sachs. That's why I went down that, because I was like, if I could provide somebody with financial advice or whatever guidance, that I could see them be helped in that way. So that is to my core, Josh. Like that's exact. You just explained like what fuels everything is being able to be a light for somebody and have them take that, and not because I know more or because I know best, but simply of like shining a light up the hill, up a mountain, and getting to watch them climb and do those hard things and accomplish difficult things while I'm holding the light. Man, like I don't know if there's anything more, for me, more inspiring and more moving than that.
This is
Yeah, I love that.
this is not your typical sales training, right, Corey? But this can actually help
Yeah,
their
no.
sales more than anything else. So, do you have
Yeah, me and
people where
me and
they're
Jens wouldn't be in business if it didn't help increase in performance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's
So
what I
do
was
you
going to say. Like, you know, I come from the hardcore sales background where you don't
Yeah.
give a rat's ass about this type of stuff, right? You just grind it out. And you know, I think there's certainly benefits of having that grinding mindset. But whenever I do podcasts like this, I like to also frame questions that I know people with that mindset are listening and what they're thinking. And what I would say back in the day, what I would say is, well, does therapy actually get me more sales, like performance, or does it make me just feel better? Because I don't just push past the negativity, but like, what have you guys seen in terms of actual results and performance? And why do you think the therapeutic side of things actually helps the cold hard performance and results?
Yeah. I can
We'll go with
speak
Corey.
on that real quick. Yeah. So working hard isn't something that we really get to negotiate, right? And I think that's sometimes a misconception, at least with like mental health and therapy, and like, and even like you go to therapy, some therapists out there will coddle you and whatever, right? Like mental health is not a crutch. It's not like, oh, I have anxiety, now I have an excuse to not do things, right? It's mental health is all about self-awareness and really pushing past limiting beliefs and becoming the healthiest we can mentally. Just like physical health, it creates a lot, you know, in order to get stronger, you have to create a lot of pain and that pain and work through it, and your muscles break down, the whole thing. And so I love talking this in the sense that the guys, especially the grind mentality, whatever it may be, like truthfully, what I've noticed is when you can take somebody and everyone thinks they're self-aware, and then you're like, okay, let's take it like 3 notches deeper. And the second you can go there, you can solve a lot more problems a lot more effectively. And so, for example, if somebody's on the doors and it's 5 p.m. and they don't have a deal yet, what potentially are they feeling emotionally?
Yeah. Would it be
They're,
fair to say it's like the framework of how to deal with those negative
Yes.
emotions
Yes.
and the framework of how to deal with
Yes.
those positive emotions?
yeah,
He was
yeah.
trying to
I
do
mean,
a
because if
role
they're
play,
feeling,
Josh. Go ahead, Corey. I got you, bro.
no, you're good. You're good. You're good. Let's
sorry.
say that let's say they're feeling inadequate, right? It's 5
Yeah.
p.m. They don't have a deal. They're starting to feel a little insecure, a little inadequate, right? Fair. We've all been there.
Yes. Yep.
And so this rep, what he can do, if you just grind harder, just grind through, and then there's no self-awareness, it's just like, dude, I'm just gonna freaking go, right? That's totally allowed. However, now you're creating this emotional pattern around this feeling of insecurity and inadequacy, to where tomorrow, if it's 5 p.m. and I don't have a deal yet, the emotion might just creep back in. What we want to do is, hey, let's say I'm feeling inadequate. I want to take that second and just process like, hey, I'm feeling inadequate. And so it's almost becomes like, because I'm feeling inadequate, I'm going to go choose to work hard. Because what inadequacy wants me to do is maybe take the break, maybe sit in the car, maybe complain, whatever. But I'm going to take ownership of that emotion and I'm going to go work hard. So you can still work hard and grind, but there's deeper intention now involved with it that helps your brain go, wow, like I'm not inadequate. I'm actually super good enough, and I'm putting effort. I'm living out of value, right? Rather than just like feel the same emotion, grind. That just leads to like more of an exhaustion. So yes, the self-awareness piece and solving problems on a real level, it totally has an impact on performance. Like I've seen guys double their sales revenue just because they're finally taking care of their crap, you know?
Yeah.
100%. By the way, I love the voices you make, Corey. I heard it a couple times as you were talking, doing little voices. You change
Thanks.
you change your characters pretty well.
It's a part of me, dude. Yeah.
Did I mess up and I didn't hear I think my video froze. I didn't hear the voices if he's doing role play. My bad.
No, you're chilling.
You know, you guys are obviously in sales, and obviously door to door is a big part of it. But are you like, which industries are you seeing the most draw in that maybe, I don't want to say needs the most help, but you're seeing that your expertise is helping out a lot? What specific industries? I know Jens definitely has solar and plus more, but Jens, maybe you want to go first. Is this, solar? What's like the mostly the industry you see yourself in right now?
Good question, man. I don't know. I don't know if there's more like
Yeah.
a vertical within door to door that needs it less or more. I know, being in solar pretty heavily, I know that the solar industry right now is in turmoil, and there's a lot of things going on within solar that are really difficult for people. So there's that little bit of an added element. As far as you'd say, the mental and emotional side, like it's humans are humans, man. Like even if you can put a human in it go into anybody's door and they're going to experience at some level some spectrum of anxiety no matter what. And that's the beauty of it, is that I'm sure Corey would agree, of just that what we do is it's transition to any industry anywhere. It just so happens that we're here in door to door. There is, working at Goldman Sachs, or working in the medical field or whatever, there is so much where there is the need for it immensely. But as far as solar right now, to answer your question, Joe, solar right now is in a tough spot. As far as, I would say, a tough spot in that it's not 2022, and people are trying to live as if it's 2022, where red lines are a certain way, and where dealer fees are a certain way, and interest rates are a certain way, and EPC health is a certain way. Like all of those different things, it can culminate into a pretty bad place if you're still trying to live where you've become accustomed to a certain income or a certain way that things are. It's been hard for people to transition into, okay, this is the way that solar is. And I think residential solar is going to be just fine. I think it's going to, it'll come out, or people will adjust, probably both. But that's been a heavy topic in meeting with executives all the way down to the rep level, is just how different it is right now. And when things change, when things are different, that affects your mental and emotional side. Like we're in a place where we're trying to make things the same all the time so we're safe. And when things change, it can be scary. And so it definitely plays into it. And so if there was, again, I don't think there's an industry or a side of door to door that needs it the most or not, but I think right now, the way that solar is, there is a little bit of that dynamic that makes it maybe tough.
A little more scarce, yeah.
Solar.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working with solar pest alarms. I mean, the whole shebang, right? So I think it's all a need, no matter what industry. But yeah, there's definitely specific challenges depending on the industry for sure.
We'll speak more on that.
And I would hazard a guess that the majority of the people that are hurting right now that are coming to you are, oh, look, he's in solar. What do you, who would have thunk? Because of all the stuff that's happening in the industry. Jens, you have a video on Instagram, and it got me. It actually clickbaited me because the title was door-to-door bro culture or something. So I'm like, oh, I'm guessing what Jens is about to do is he's going to jump in there. He's going to be like, man, this is not good for mental health and stuff. But the video is actually, it's like, dude, these guys, some of them are badasses. They're trying to work their ass off and they care about their customers. So take a chill pill when you just say, oh, it's door-to-door bro culture and put a negative blanket over it. How do you think that culture, just sales culture in general, how do you think it's misunderstood? Because I certainly don't think that the bro sales culture is always bad at all. I think it can be very beneficial sometimes, right? Well, what do you, what's your take on the misunderstanding there?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Josh. I got like chills and like almost want to tear up of just, there's a perception of the culture for a reason, and it's there. I just think that like a lot of things, the minority is usually louder than majority, or it speaks out louder than the majority. Like you hear about the silent majority, and I'm not meaning, that could be dangerous to go down that route. All I'm saying is that what you see on the surface is never what it is at the root, whether it's with mental health or an industry or a culture or whatever. And that post came from a place where I came in, stepping into the door-to-door side, kind of having that thought, kind of thinking like, oh, these are just a bunch of like egotistical, like need validation, need approval from others, like gym bros, cars, girls, partying, like all that kind of stuff. In all reality, that's about like this much. And it's loud and can stick out, but it's this much. And when you have an industry of millions of people, this much is still a lot of people, but it's nowhere near what it truly is. And what it truly is a bunch of men and women that are doing probably the hardest job in America that you could choose to do. And that shows so much about the character of these people that are going out and doing that. And then you add on the aspects of the side of the world that Corey and I see of the things that they carry every day, what they went through as a child, what they went through as a teenager, what they went through trying to just navigate and be the best they can be. And at any time, we're just trying to do the best with what we have. And I think so there's a lot of misunderstanding in that side, because there are those people 100%. Yet there's so many more that are founded, strong, good, kind, understanding, loving, empathetic, real people in this industry, and the realest of the realists, because they're doing again, one of the hardest things you could choose to do in this nation. And so um, I feel it so much in my core, because we get to see the raw and real hearts of these people that really, really care and are really, really trying to just be and do their best.
Love it. And Corey, you just hate all door-to-door bro culture, right? You're just on the other side of the spectrum.
No, not at all. Actually, like low key in my heart, I'm still a sales bro.
Hey, you know what?
100%. No, I ditto what Jen says, man. It's an honor working with all these guys, and they're like, if you once you pull back the layers a little bit, dude, just all really good human beings, man. That just at the end of the day, just want similar things,
Especially if they're open to sale, like therapy, those are generally going to be the good eggs, even if they've done stuff in the past that's bad. If they're open to that idea, because for a sales bro to do that, that's a big step for a lot of these guys, right? That come from the hardcore backgrounds. So, if they come to you, that I would assume that's like an immediate indication, like, okay, this guy either, there's something to him. Let's dive in here.
Yeah.
I would even say those that pose the hardest, that are like the bro and like really show that, are the ones that like might have the biggest aversion, but they have as the biggest conversion. Those are the ones that 30 minutes into the session or 30 minutes into the training are just like bawling,
right?
Because they've been, we're running for a reason. We pose for a reason, and usually it's a good reason. But usually those people, to your point, Josh, like, yes, those that are like, yep, I'm open to it, I want it. And then there's those that are kind of like putting their toe in. They're like, of course they have to choose to jump in, but those are the ones that are like, whew, like feeling it the most.
Yeah, to Josh's point, it's not going to be where the individuals are going to be like, Jens, Corey, I need your help. Tell me this. I need, like, do you notice that you have to have those group settings first, so they can know who you are, that they can trust you, they actually can let loose with you? Or do you feel like, you don't even need the group training, they just need to get in one-on-one right away? Like, is there a transition, or would you prefer group and individuals? How does that kind of balance work?
I think the group trainings and social media both help people build a relationship with you, and help, build some trust and comfortability to say, I'm like, if you could see all my client list, you'd be like, you're working with that guy, what? Like, that guy's working with, like, he's doing, you'd be surprised, man. Like, there's a lot of really cool people reaching out in this way, and so, yeah, I think the group trainings and social media definitely help. I think Jens and I both do like a free consultation type of thing, to allow guys to safely kind of jump on a call and see what it's like and just chat it up. And I see that as a huge thing too, non-threatening, just like, hey, let's just chat it up and see if this makes sense, and a lot of guys feel comfortable through that.
You guys are both very like warm, open, even through your content and speaking to you. Like, I don't sense an inkling of someone going in and being like put off. So obviously I can't imagine someone talking to either of you and being like, oh, it's a bit aggressive. I would assume they're just melting like butter. You guys are so easy to talk to.
They just meet with me and then go to Corey to work through it.
I talked to that Jens guy. He's the most aggressive, loud guy ever.
That guy was a jerk. No, I'm just kidding.
So do you prefer one-on-ones then? Like, you do groups? The social media thing is so true, like building trust, especially if they watch your content over a longer period of time. I get that comment a lot from our stuff. It's like, I've been watching you for 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
You've added so much value to me already. And then they take it further. Is that generally what you're finding, and that's what social media has allowed you to do?
Totally.
Yeah,
100%.
I think that's played a big part, as well as, word of mouth. And I love the impact of one-on-ones. And at the same time, like, my heart really lies in the speaking. That's what I
Which is
initially
dope. Yeah.
left Goldman Sachs for, and that's a huge part of like my passion, desire is the speaking side and workshop side. So between those two things, between social media and then doing workshops and stuff, usually funnels to the one-on-ones.
That's
Speaking of like one-on-ones, how much of it is in reps or like the CEOs and the leadership? Is it a balance of the two? Like, I'm just curious of who you guys are working with.
Yeah.
And obviously it's people who are reaching out to you, but what's kind of the balance, Corey? Are you mostly CEOs and then you have reps hitting you up too, or what are you looking at?
Yeah, I'd say majority of my clients are in that, like, I'd say 70% of my clients are in that like 2nd year rep to like 4 to 5 year rep phase. Where, yeah, so I'd say that's probably my typical, and then within that you find your managers and your guys leading teams and that type of stuff, which within that realm. And then then the next part would be already really high performer guys, managers, VPs, owners of companies, that become clients too. Yeah. And I actually work in the tech sales space quite a bit too. So I have a good chunk of clients actually in the tech sales space, and which is fun.
That's pretty cool. Go ahead, Jens.
Go ahead, Joe. I don't know if you wanted me to answer that.
No, go ahead, Jens. Just kind of the same question for you. Are you mostly, working with leadership? I know that it's probably been an evolution over the years. I know it was definitely heavy rep at one point. Is it still heavily rep focused, or are you seeing a lot more transition to leadership?
Yeah, I'm probably right now with my one-on-ones, I'm probably 85% from the VP, C-suite, and executive owner level, and then
wow,
definitely
that's
cool. Have probably 15 to 20% maybe on the rep level.
Oh wow.
A lot of my team takes kind of the rep level or things like that. So
cool. That's
kind of where I've moved into over the past little while. And where is that? I definitely still have like that 1 to 5 year and everything rep level, but yeah, that's where I sit.
What do you guys see like the biggest differences? Because I would assume a lower level guy is going to need support and an approach. Maybe I'm wrong, but compared to a C-suite, like, do you see clear differences? You see someone coming in, he's a C-suite, you're like, okay, I have a framework and I probably know some issues he's coming across. I'm going to approach it a different way, or is it sort of across the board similar?
Go ahead.
You can go, James. Oh, okay. I just no, I definitely think there's differences, dude, for sure. Right? Like, that's like, like being an entrepreneur for me, one thing I've looked for is like, I need to surround myself by more entrepreneurs because nobody knows what I'm going through. Right.
True.
So it's like a whole unique of challenges, right? When you're talking manager, I've created a whole like manager course on helping managers better understand how to help reps thrive mentally and emotionally, and working with managers, and obviously they work through themselves, but also help guys and helping their reps and that type of stuff too. So yeah, there's common themes between their phases of life for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say pretty similar. I think, like Corey said, the unique struggles that they go through, they're different. Like having the weight of a whole organization on your shoulders, and your family, versus not just your family, because that's still super heavy, but your family. I do think something I've noticed is, I kind of mentioned it, like humans are humans, and so at the core, like the insecurity or the struggle or the pain or the trauma or whatever is generally like pretty similar. One just might be more developed
So
than the
true.
other, but the unique struggles, sometimes like executives that have a lot more of that, and so they think it's all these, there's a little more like smoke screens a lot of times of like what's really causing this or that or whatever. But you get to the core, and like we all have a heart, we all have a mind, we've all been through things, and so there's some heavy similarities with different unique struggles.
That's what do you so you get a rep that comes through your door, C-suite, and let's talk about just sales or door to door. Try to keep it in like a
Yeah.
some sort of a niche. What maybe some free value for people watching? Like, what are the top? I don't even know you could do this. I don't know if it's so custom that you can't really even say here's the top 3 things. But like, if someone's struggling right now and they're looking at this, like, what most probable? What are they dealing with if they're on door to door sales or solar or something in an industry? Like, what are the common occurrences that you're seeing? If, like, let's say a rep, somebody in their 20s or 30s. Corey, go for it.
Yeah, I'd say one of the first things that comes to my mind is you probably aren't identifying any of your emotions in specificity, like whatsoever. You're most likely, people are like, they really don't even know what they're feeling. And so, for example, like you could say, I'm anxious, but what if what you're really feeling is insecure? Two totally different emotions, right? But they're calling it anxiety, they're calling it this, which feels like this thing that I can't really work through. But I'm like, the second you and when you identify emotions, there's a ton of research that backs this up, but when you can increase your ability to identify emotions in specificity, your ability to then tolerate that emotion and create a solution is like 10x, dude. And so most people, and we're not taught this, we're not taught emotional health and self-awareness in that way, but I'd say for sure a great place to start is like, if you're feeling off, understand what the frick you're feeling, right? Like there's so much value in identifying it in specificity. You'll feel so much more clarity around your ability to tolerate it and work through it, rather than that emotion kind of working you. So
I think that's so important, right? And I don't know if you agree with me on this one, but I feel I might be boiling it down too simply, but I feel emotions feel like something, and the way I think about it is that's a combination of a certain amount of chemicals in your brain that are causing you to feel that emotion. And I've not been very good at it, but I've consciously been trying to do that over the past few years, especially like acknowledging, oh, I know that feeling. I had it once before, and this was the reason why. And I sort of think about that. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a certain way. And what helps me, maybe I'm technically wrong here, but what helps me is thinking it's a set amount of chemicals that are giving you that feeling of emotion. And it acknowledges, okay, it's just chemicals. I can deal with this. This is how I dealt with it before. It's like almost systemizing that feeling, that internal feeling. And if you build that repertoire of being able to acknowledge a certain feeling and how you dealt with it before, you can sort of skip steps. I could be so off my interpretation there.
If
But that's
that works for you, then I'm all game for it, man.
Life hack.
yeah.
Yeah, I would add to that, Josh, because there's an element where the logical side and logicking your way kind of through the emotion can help see and give a perspective that's really, really helpful.
Yeah.
As long as I feel like as if it's coupled with the actual feeling of it. And I call it like feeling of that emotion, not just logically seeing it, because there's more happening from your jaw down with your emotions, your feelings, than happening from your jaw up. And so if you can like think from your jaw down, is what I call it, and feel it, to Corey's point, to be able to pinpoint it, acknowledge it, feel it, then use a little bit of this to like put names to it and everything of like, how did I get there, systematize. But if it's not rooted on the understand of like actually feeling it, then it's going to be really hard for that system to have some foundation, some weight to it. That is, I think, a foundational part. The only thing I would add little bit to what Corey said, because I think I resonate so much with that, and that's spot on. Of the foundation of feeling it is also there's this book, and it just talks about how the question of all of our souls is essentially, do I have what it takes? And I think that's probably one of the most the most posed at root question that I get is, if we get really down to it, like, do I have what it takes? Am I enough? Can I do it? Whatever it is. And a lot of times people will pose it as confidence, but the opposite of insecurity is security. And so if we can create security in oneself, and I think it takes the security oneself to sit in the emotion, feel the emotion, trust yourself that if I feel this emotion, I'm going to be okay. It's not going to overtake me. It's not going to consume me. It's not going to kill me. Like, if I feel it and sit in it and really understand and navigate it, I'm going to be okay. And that takes immense self-trust and self-security to be able to do that. Because you're answering that question, do I have what it takes, by doing so, by sitting in it and actually putting a label on it.
Little side note, you guys are clearly professionals. I mean, in sales, when you get guys that say I'm a sales therapist or a mindset, like, a high percentage of them, man, are just chatting rubbish. But you guys clearly have a systematic approach to things. I really enjoy it. What's going on, guys? Just a quick break before we get back into the pod to tell you a bit about what we got going on for you, some resources for you. So first things first, Virtual Solar Club, the home of all things remote solar sales, the largest community of remote solar sales professionals in the universe. We got training for you. We got support. We got networking, community, lead sources, software, installation, infrastructure. We're a big group of people that sell solar remotely around the world. If you want to transition or to start selling solar remotely, get software, get all the resources you need to do so, you can use code SolarPulse on registration and get a bunch of discounts for you. We're here for you. We're ready to support you. Let's sell some solar remotely. What do you say? Joe, you got anything for us?
Oh yeah, SolarCon is right around the corner, and this is going to be our third year, and we're looking at the most epic event ever, and it's going to be at the same place, same time, April 18th, 19th, and 20th in Salt Lake City at the SolarPulse Convention Center, and we're going to have Gary V headlining. We got Andy Elliott, Jeremy Miner, David Meltzer, and over 150 speakers and trainers training all aspects of the solar industry. And then the highlight of the event every year is our expo floor, where we're going to have the piano player to the presidents, lounges, activities, bars, and the best conversations you've ever had at a conference is with the feedback we get from everybody. So if you guys haven't signed up yet, get your tickets now. We have an extra discount for you guys, an extra 10% on top of the website has. Just go to attendsolarcon.com/virtual solar. Again, that's attendsolarcon.com/virtual solar, and you will get the biggest discount anybody has to offer. So if you guys don't know, now you know. Let's get back to the podcast.
Let's go the other end. Someone that, so we talked about, like, that's a major thing for someone that comes to you on the rep level. That's one of the biggest things. What about someone that's watching who is just not the type to ever reach out? Yeah. Like, cool, they might even like the idea of what we're talking about, but they are just not the type to reach out. How do we bridge that gap? What do you think, Jens?
Social media.
Me? Yeah,
sure. What do you
social
got?
Media. I'm a big proponent, a huge proponent of people will come when they're ready.
Yeah.
And pushing anybody into anything, or like, hey, like my manager said I should do this. Now, I think there's some merit to that and stepping in, but I'm not going to put somebody down a path that they're not ready to go on, because it's going to cause more damage than it does good. And if somebody's pushed down that path and thinking, like, oh, like my wife said I needed to go to therapy, so I'm here. Sometimes that can go well. Like if the counselor, therapist, coach, like whatever you want to call it, is really good, they'll help walk that person at the pace where that person's actually walking, not like pick the person up and carry them across the finish line. But that's where I'm at, is there's strategic ways to help somebody to get comfortable with it. And there's also ways where you allow people to have their process. And when that process involves a therapist, a coach, again, whatever it is, a professional in what they do, like that'll present itself. They have to have their process.
Yeah, they'll reach out. They'll reach out when they're ready. I think word of mouth helps a ton. Like,
Yeah.
it helps those
Yeah.
guys feel way more comfortable. Like when dudes that have worked with me that then become open about it and chat it up, and it helps so many other dudes reach out and feel comfortable doing it. So shout out to all the people that have felt comfortable saying they reached out on a resource like this and it helped, because that makes a big difference for the other guy that's like, oh, you worked with him? How was it? And then they feel comfortable enough to let their guard down a little bit and reach out. Because, dude, again, it's mental health. It's like everybody, we all have a mind. We all need it mentally healthy. It's not it's unfortunate. Just there's been bad raps on reaching out for something like that. But man, we all need to process like our emotions and thoughts and work through crap. So anyways, it's rad work. Everybody will do it at some point.
You don't have to give any names on
you
this,
choose it
but
or force it to happen.
What percentage of people are actually crying on the one-on-ones? Come on, tears are coming out. What percentage of people tears are coming out on your one-on-ones? What do you say, Corey?
Those moments happen, and I have no idea of percentage, but sessions can also be really fun. They don't always have to be these dark breakdown moments. It can be perspective shifts and enlightening. It's like they're seeing it one way, and it's like, hey, let's just try to see this another way. Like, it doesn't always have to be like, let's talk about your biggest trauma and all these things. Like, sometimes, it's we definitely have those breakthroughs in those moments for sure, and they're really special. But sessions can also be super like enlightening, and rad in that way.
Well, Jens is a big part of the solar industry, so I'm sure he's getting more tears in his one-on-ones. Sorry.
Only the last year. Yeah.
A little joke there. Go ahead, Jen.
No, I will say to Corey's point that, I mean, that's spot on. A lot of people are scared or worried or running from things that are hard to dive into, and it's hard to face or whatever that it might be. And I think the overall fear and worry is like, will this consume me? Like, if I let it not be the past and think about it now, like, will it consume me, or will it be too much, or whatever it might be? I've never seen it not work out in a way where, I shouldn't say never, but rarely does it ever work out in a way where there's not immediate relief, immediate healing, immediate just some sort of emotion that maybe you go through a really tough session where there are tears or there's things that are coming up, but at almost equal weight, especially over some time, you're met with just immediate fulfillment or peace or healing that you haven't had in your whole life. And so it's nearly always a trade-off of like, I'm going to offload this and I'm leaving space for this new piece to come and take part of where I'm at. And so they can be fun, they can be good, they can be heavy, but the more work that you do, it's like the more
it's better
fulfillment, more lightness that meets it exactly at that same point and then eventually supersedes it. It's a beautiful thing to watch. We watch people walk in and feel worried and scared and a little hesitant to dive in. And when they do, man, just to feel just this immense peace or joy or whatever that was that they're missing, immediately.
I should add too, like, there's a lot of clients that reach out that are already like high performing states that they're like, dude, I'm actually pretty good mentally. I just want to go to the next level. And we do.
Yeah.
Right. It's not always like, I'm actually pretty self-aware. I've already kind of worked through some stuff. Like I'm developed. I just want to go and like, that's fun. Like, part of this job with these sales guys is they have limiting beliefs, and we break through them, and so, and I'm breaking through limiting. I have to, in order to grow a business, right? Like, I'm pressed against the glass of limiting belief all the time, and I have to break through. Mm-hmm. And so that's a really fun thing to do with clients too, is guys that are already high performers are like, hey, I want to go bigger this year. And that's really fun work too.
Yeah. I mean, I have personal experience there. I was doing, this was about a year before I started my EPC. So maybe 2016 or 2017 in Australia. And, I'm probably pretty damn good at brushing the emotions to the side and keep moving forward. Beneficial sometimes, very not beneficial other times. But certainly one time I just broke down. And it was, I call it the perfect trifecta. I had relationship issues, I had business issues, and I had existential issues. All just hit me all at the same time. But business was going great. There's general stress, but money was flowing and everything was cool. But it just hit me. So I wasn't specifically, I went to therapy for a few months, not a sales therapist. That would be really interesting if that was a sales therapist. And honestly, it was just helpful just to speak to somebody. You know, it wasn't like business is failing, everything is horrible. It was just, things are going okay. I just don't feel good right now. I'm something's wrong. I need someone to help me work through this stuff. So it wasn't like everything's going to crash unless I go to therapy. No, I was breezy. I just had that emotional just kill me for like a few weeks, and I just needed to get it out and help get someone to help me work through it. And it was beneficial. I don't know if I went to the right person or not, but I certainly got benefit out of just having someone there to bleed it out for and listen to me and help me work through it.
I think Jens and I both do this, but we at least me, I let clients have access to they can send audio messages and stuff in between sessions. The reason I do that is because, one, long-term change in the brain happens with how we handle in the moment distress. So you want to be able to like work through things effectively in the moment when you're experiencing them. But that ability to go process emotions and thoughts and have a safe place to go do that, even outside of just the call, but like in the moment and work through it, is just like, dude, invaluable. I do it. I have support systems and people in my life where I'm like, hey, I need to process this. This is something going on. And it just helps. It creates a lot of clarity, man.
Especially if you're one of those guys like me who thinks their mind is a fortress and nothing will ever penetrate it ever. And then one day it does happen, and now it's just your multiple voices screaming at each other in your head. And you just have to get it out. You have to get it out somewhere, because you're like, oh, what the hell? I didn't know didn't know this was possible. I thought it was a castle. Nothing could get through. It just floors you.
Well, I appreciate your vulnerability on that, dude.
Yeah. It was certainly a vulnerable state, man. Certainly a vulnerable state. And it'd be interesting to sales therapy, though. That's so, especially for guys that have been on the sales side and know like exactly what a sales guy is going through. It's such an interesting niche. There's so much more value add than going to a general therapist who's working with a bunch of other people. The sales guy walks in and you immediately go, I know exactly what you're going through. Been through it myself. This is what you're dealing with. Like the ability to be heard by one of your clients is just like exponential, I would assume. No? Really cool.
I've had clients reach out and they were going to a general therapist, and their therapist told them, unfortunately, like, hey, maybe you should quit your job. And I'm like, not what they wanted to hear. And I'm like, that doesn't have to be the answer. And those poor therapists, they just don't understand sales and specifically door to door, and how much it can take. So anyways, yeah.
Imagine if, the therapist had that door to door bro mindset that it was all negative, and it just takes someone like Jens to come in and say, dude, it doesn't have to be negative. That's a misunderstanding. Let's focus on the positives here and help you keep grinding in a healthy way. Right? That's very different from the general take on things that it's all just negative.
Absolutely.
So you guys mentioned public speaking, and was it Jens, you said you specifically left Goldman Sachs, was it, for public speaking? What about that, and what have you done so far other than social media? Because I guess that's a form of public speaking. Like what do you enjoy about it so much, and what does that look like for you right now?
Wait, first of all, I gotta just make you guys know, Jens is one of the best public speakers I ever heard. The way the audience hears them, and you can see their emotions, the way they listen and take it. Like, I've never seen somebody on stage the way Jens is. Does speak on stage, and I'm super pumped because he is speaking on the main stage at SolarCon this year. So I just want to make sure, like, everybody knows this guy's not just talking out of some place he doesn't know. One of the best speakers I've ever seen on stage. Go ahead, Jens. Go ahead, make sure I announced it. I said that.
Thanks, dude. That means a lot. Appreciate that, man. Like I said, it's like the foundation, like a core thing in my soul that I just absolutely love, is the speaking side of it. and that's what I gave me the courage to jump from what I thought was going to be like my trajectory at Goldman Sachs. And because once you're in, it's difficult to get in, and so to get into Goldman Sachs and to stay there, and that's what a lot of people do, or use it as a springboard into something similar. But yeah, so I started speaking to athletes. I'd go and I just called around and would go speak for free at high schools and different sports. And that transitioned to full athletic departments and speaking to athletic departments. And then I it's just been a progression. Yeah, from speaking at SolarCon to I'm speaking at Win the Storm, that conference. Speaking at I speak at high school assemblies now. I do probably anywhere from 3 to 6 high school assemblies a year. Well, probably 5 to 8 a year. I go speak to high schools and do full school assemblies. I'm speaking in a month or so to all the court employees of Utah. So my speaking side is definitely a little bit more diverse than the door-to-door side. But I don't know. I think it really roots back to that part where if I can provide something that allows somebody to, I'll tell you this, the reason why I do it and what I absolutely love and what I figured is I love helping people, helping others feel things about themselves that they've never felt before.
Yeah.
And I feel like that I can do that from a stage, that they can feel something about themselves that they've never felt before. And I think that's something that's so beautiful and so lasting. And I think that's the core for it for me of why speaking is such a huge part of my passion and my trajectory.
Bro, I
I
absolutely
love that,
love it.
bro.
And Corey is going to be on stage at SolarCon too. But I don't know much of your background in speaking, Corey. Have you done much, or is that part of what your goals are? Talk to us.
You know, it's funny. I actually feel very natural on stage. I enjoy it. I speak a lot for companies, do events, that type of stuff, and it's something that it's always something that I've really enjoyed. And so, yeah, I love it. I like, creating that experience for guys and being able to really captivate their minds and make it really fun. And I have a funny, humorous side about me, and I love showing that. And so being on stage allows me to really show my personality and make it really fun, and then also kind of hit them hard in the emotions and the feels too, and kind of give them both. And so, yeah, I love speaking, man. It's been fun. I haven't marketed it. It's just kind of naturally happened, and I've spoken for companies and done events and that type of stuff. And so at some point, I'll probably start marketing that a lot more. I just, I do a lot of one-on-ones and a lot of sessions and a lot of group work. And so, I haven't worried too much about the speaking stuff, but whenever I get invited, I do it and I love it.
I like that. Start with the comedy and then slip into therapy, baby. Right?
Um, as we sort of get closer to all the questions that we've got here at the end of them, one big thing for me, especially over the past few years for me, is the title would be the importance of the why, right? Especially in North America, I see people motivated by things that are very shallow, more than I do like anywhere else in the world. Personally, I've never been motivated by money. I've never been motivated by making money or a certain amount of money. I'm not one of those guys that say, oh, if you could snap your fingers, you'd get $1 billion in your account. Of course, I'll say yes, but it's not something that I'm like, okay, I need this amount of money by this amount of time. It's never motivated me. I've always been motivated by other factors. And it's difficult to pinpoint those factors, right? And that's like a struggle, a question that I've been had personally with business and sales over the years. And I feel that is much more of an issue than people make it out to be. Like, do you guys find when people are coming through on any level, do people generally have the why figured out, or are they sort of just shooting in the dark? And do you think it's even important to have that?
I think it's really important to have have a why. Yes, I think that's important. I think it's kind of over preached a little bit in the industry in some ways. I think though having a clear vision of why I'm doing what I'm doing totally matters, especially for that like second, third, fourth year rep. Like they should totally know why they're doing it. Because if you don't, like this job just requires so much commitment. Like 2 feet in, man. You got 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you'll suck at this job. It's just facts. And there's just too much that goes into it. You got to have 2 feet in. And in order to have 2 feet in, you got to be committed to some sort of bigger purpose, vision to what you're trying to do. At least it makes it 10 times easier if you have that and have figured some of that out. So, yeah, I think helping guys dive into depth on what that is more the key, and really helping them create clarity around why they're doing what they're doing, and creating a lot of clarity around that is something I've found super helpful for sure in terms of motivation.
Let me
the whole,
throw you a curveball,
yeah, please.
a philosophical curveball. And I could be wrong. Maybe I'm focusing on the why too much. Maybe it's not as important. But what I've found, you mentioned, I believe you mentioned a big thing is, your relationship with God and whatnot. And I believe that when you have that, you already have an objective morality, and
Sure.
your why is less important. What do you say to someone who doesn't have that and they're living in a subjective world where their why can be anything?
Oh, I love this.
All
Jens,
right.
you got something?
Let's get into this.
Or
you're feeling
okay.
I mean, this is
All
on
right.
yours, so
Sorry, I'm not trying to
go.
talk too much. I'm not talking. Yeah,
No,
I'd say
you go, dude. You go.
I'd say whether it's God or not, everybody has values, right? And there's a whole concept called there's a whole therapy approach actually called values-based living. And it's really, really getting clear on what you value and living in alignment with those values. And so with those clients, like a lot of my values line up and align with God, but whether it's God or not, everybody's got morals and values. And a lot of, honestly, dude, so many people don't actually know what their values are. It blows my mind. And when I mean getting clear, it's like, what are your 7, 8, maybe 10 like core values to who you are? And then your choices, make sure they're in alignment with your values, because if they're out of alignment, you're going to be pretty unhappy, right? So sometimes people are, maybe they're making a choice that they enjoy, but really when they dive into it, it's like, dang, this habit or this addiction, like this actually doesn't line up with my values, right? Because they can do this value work. And so with clients like that, I definitely go to value work. Like, what are your values? Like, who are you? Like, what are your values? And live in alignment.
So you said, so many people don't know their values. Let me rephrase my first question, and maybe it's more digestible then, right? But like, no, I'm saying is you answered it perfectly. Like maybe if I rephrase the first question is not about the importance of the why, but the importance of figuring out the values. Is that more aligned with more a better approach there, or better wording?
I think it can. Yeah, I think your why and your values for sure are like really aligned. And honestly, like I think your why can kind of change too. Like I every like 4 to 6 months I process what's my why.
Yeah.
Because I think there's different things that are pushing me in that moment, right?
Likewise, it's always changing. You gotta catch up on it, because if you all of a sudden you're stuck in a dark room with no why, it's not a good time.
Yeah.
That's
It has
my
to
2
evolve
cents.
over
Jens,
time,
what
right,
do you
Jen?
got for me?
It has to evolve over time, right,
Yeah,
Jen?
man. As far as the why and all that.
By the way, I'm making this my therapy session. That's what
I love
I'm
it,
doing.
bro.
It's everybody's therapy session
we'll
right
send you
now,
the bill
baby.
after. You didn't know that we got your Venmo before this. We'll send you a bill.
This is not a training session right now. We're just talking.
No, just kidding. Yeah, just talking. Just kidding. It's free. And I can't do therapy, so this is actually Corey will send you it. I'm not a therapist. Okay. As far as like the why and everything like that, I agree. Like the why has become not because it's not important, but because it's become a cliche. People kind of shy away from it or just are inundated with it or whatever. One of my favorite book of all time is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and he talks about meaning. I'm a firm believer that you can have a why or a purpose and try to figure out what that looks like logically, and have like different parts of you, or a mission or thing you want to achieve. But if it doesn't mean anything, it's empty. And so many of us are trying to like be disciplined to a purpose or disciplined to this vision. And Jordan Peterson says when discipline, you can be as disciplined as you want, but if it doesn't have heart, then it'll amount to nothing. And I think that heart of it is meaning. And so somebody might not be able to tell you what a vision or purpose or why, but a lot of times it's easy to find meaning. And if it's
Yeah.
not, we there's a couple things you can do to get into your values to find the meaning. And so again, Viktor Frankl says that there's nothing that is insurmountable, something you can't overcome. There's just a lack for meaning. So if we can get down to like what it means, what is it? What is the tragedy, the trauma, whatever it is? When I went through that as a 4-year-old, 10-year-old, 15-year-old, whatever, what does that mean? What is it doing for me now? What does it mean for my life? Same thing for knocking a door. Like my why might be I wanna buy my mom a house. 5 doors in, that why gets a little bit hazy once you've been kicked in the teeth for a couple times. But what does the door mean? Like, what does buying your house for your mom mean? Like, what is the meaning? What's the emotion? What's the feeling behind it? And if every door meant something, whether it's a yes or no, man, it doesn't matter if it's yes or no, because it meant something. It meant something to the individual. And so you take that into the view of, Josh, you mentioned like having a higher power or not. And I always just say, whatever your higher power is, have one. I have one. Whatever it is, karma, nature, universe, God, Allah, enlightenment, whatever you call it, just have one. So if you have one, it gives you perspective on yourself, gives you perspective on your world and your purpose, why you're here, which then in turn creates so much more meaning to any sort of suffering or joy that you might have. So there's the big why, but beneath that, I believe, is the meaning of what it all means.
Or maybe even like not lack of meaning, but for example, universe. You know, I love doing this experiment. Watch a video on how big the bloody universe is. And then for me, that really helps. I got this tiny little thing that's giving me stress, and I'm like, oh damn, like that doesn't really mean much. Is that a healthy way to do that? A little positive nihilistic approach, or is that putting it to the side too much?
I think it's healthy to have some perspective, yet again, there's something in psychology called amplification, and it's, the more you suppress something, the louder it'll get. So if we just continue to shove off like that little thing is like, oh, like in the grand scheme, it doesn't really mean anything. It's not that big. But if you don't, it takes a seed to grow a tree. Same thing with a thought. Same thing with some self-belief. Like, well, it just doesn't, this little thing that happened to me today, there's good, I'm not saying like just because somebody cut you off, you need to go into like the deep meaning, whatever. But like there's some things that just perspective can have a lot of help with. At the same time, I think it's to be introspective is really healthy and helpful too, to understand like if there's something that's coming up from me that has meaning, that's attached to something else that's causing something in my life. So yeah, I think you're right on. And if, just like everything, it's really hard to say always works all the time. It's per circumstance for sure.
You're speaking about your why. Just real quick, another one that's evolves over time is goal setting. And some people make it without setting any goals. They just go and they just kind of focused on the next step or micro goals. I don't want to go too deep into this, for you guys. I'm sure it's not something you want to get into too deep, but just like for beginners who don't really have a strategy of goal setting, is it important, and what is kind of a way to do it? Is it a big picture goal setting, or is it kind of just small baby steps?
Yeah, I think there's with any goal, it has to be paired with like belief and faith in the process.
Josh,
right?
You're getting an echo. Just pause there real quick. Sorry, go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, I think with any goal, it has to be paired with like a belief and a faith in the process, right? without a process to trust that, hey, if I do this process, I'm trusting that this process will lead to this thing, right? And I think where a lot of guys, they set this goal, but then they don't think about the process, you know, and then they don't trust the process. And so what happens is they have a bad week, and then they crunch the numbers and they're behind on their goal, and they're now behind, even though they still have months and months still of work to be able to hit it. They fall in this anxiety trap of being behind, where it's like, dude, there's so much value in trusting the process, which means within this level of consistency, fluctuation is allowed, meaning some days I'm going to average out around this number, around this amount of deals a month, but it's going to fluctuate because that's sales. There's going to be some consistency there, but it's going to fluctuate. And so anyways, having a process you can trust with any, I'd say that's a great first step. Is sure, set a goal, but dude, be obsessed with whatever that process is to hit that goal and trust it. Put faith in it.
I see that a lot, right, with sales reps. And I always use the Mount Everest analogy. They're like, I want a certain amount of money, certain amount of sales, whatever. And it's the equivalent of looking at the top of Mount Everest and say, I want to go there. And then say, cool, what's your, like, what routes are you taking? And they're like, what the hell is that? I watched that documentary, Alex Honnold or something, the free climber that did El Capitan, free climbing. Every single foothold and handhold that he did, he imagined in his head. So yeah, he saw the top, but I don't know, hundreds, thousands of footholds and handholds, every single one. And he had so many choices and he mapped it out. You know, whereas sales guys, business guys, like, oh yeah, this amount of money on this amount of sales by the end of the week or whatever, end of the month. Cool. What's your first step to get there? Oh, just work harder. That's all. That's as far as it goes. Right? There's no plan of attack.
That's such a good point.
Mm-hmm.
I like that comparison.
Want me to take that same question?
No, whatever. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, you want me to? Sorry, I don't know if I cut out or something. Yeah, I can dive into that. The goal setting, it's an interesting like dichotomy to have, because you can have the part where you set a goal and there's no question in your mind, like, I'm going to get it. It's by this day, by that time, and that there's a lot of merit to push you to do things that you don't want to do, all that kind of stuff to get there. At the same time, we're not always going to get there. So it's balancing and understanding and living in harmony of the fact of like, how do I put that like non-negotiable, also understanding that I'm not going to be able to meet that non-negotiable all the time. If we're properly setting goals, majority of the time we're not going to hit it. Majority of the time that we're going to be just short. And so my huge thing is there is so much room within goal setting, or whatever you want to call it, for compassion. There is so much room for compassion. Compassion is not an excuse. It's your ability to alleviate suffering. And if you can apply compassion to the times that you fall short, you don't go back to zero with compassion. You go back to zero with shame. You start to shame yourself, you'll go back to zero. Maybe you did 80% of what you want to do the 100%. You use compassion for the fact of, I made it 80%. What am I going to do to make this last 20, or what could I have done, whatever, but I use compassion. When I go and wake up the next morning to go at it, I'm just doing 20%. I don't have to go. I'm not destroying everything that I just went and did. And so again, I'll go back to the same thing. Whenever we talk about goal setting, we want to achieve is establishing the meaning of that goal. Because that'll be, like, I don't love the word motivating, but that'll be the most motivating thing that you'll have, is the meaning that's attached to that goal. You can call it a why or whatever, but it's the meaning behind of why I'm trying to achieve what I achieve. And I think, Josh, that illustration of climbing is really good. And I think there's so much merit in planning for everything possible, everything that you could do to make it happen. There's also, I think, room, and this is where compassion comes in, for understanding that I'm not going to be able to plan for everything. Like I had, starting my business a few years ago, like I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Like I feel like I had this like path, I had this way I was going to do it, I'm going to go for it. But then I get on the path and I'm like on a plane, for the past 2 years, 20 to 28 days out of the month traveling, and with 1 to 3 different organizations a week, and just spent And it sometimes could seem like it was just so much. It's too much. Like, how am I actually going to close this gap? How am I actually going to climb that mountain? I thought I planned it to the T. And that's when those moments are elements. There's so much room for the compassion and then that little bit of grit where you apply to yourself like, yeah, man, this is freaking hard. This is real tough. And now it's time to get a little bit gritty. Like, I'm gonna grit through this. And while paying attention to where I'm at, of course. But I think there's so much understanding in that how we set a goal. It's never gonna be like the path that we actually have planned out, and being willing to be easy on yourself as it takes some ebbs and flows that you didn't necessarily plan for.
You know, a good example.
That's another aspect, right?
Is a good example is Elon Musk. I don't think he ever hits his goals, but I think he's doing just fine, right? So it's like the goal could just be the carrot at the end of the stick that you're just trying to achieve, and you don't have to always have to hit it, but as long as it's getting you to where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
And you said, Jen, it's like you meticulously plan. So we have the opposite end of the spectrum when a lot of guys don't even make a plan. But I've been in the situation, especially the past few years, I meticulously planned to get to an end goal, and that plan didn't work, you know? And at that point, take the Elon Musk example, like I think the biggest determining factor is like perseverance. I think I saw a TikTok the other day. What was it? Seth Rogen or some actor, right? He's just like, very basic. It's been said a million times before, but it's like if you keep going, if you persevere, you might reach your goal. If you stop, you 100% won't. It's really basic, you know, and the perseverance factor is a massive piece there.
Yeah, I think it's built. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, go for it, Corey.
Oh, I just think it's designed that way. I think it's designed to, you have a plan and we're going to have our face pressed against the glass of limiting beliefs, you know, or trial or struggle. And I'm like, that's the whole point. It's through those moments that we become a different version of ourselves, which is rad. Like, as much as I hate those moments, I'm like, let's get it, because that's how we grow mentally, you know?
Yeah. Jens, you mentioned, you name dropped big J Money Peterson. Yeah, I think one or two other guys there. Do either of you have any, like, other than binge watching all of your content and, you know, jumping in your guys' calendar, do you guys have any like little hacks of content, books or people or podcasts that you find helpful, that, you know, someone in sales, door to door, whatever would be, would take some value from?
Yeah, for sure. Corey, you wanna go first?
Yeah, I think a great podcast is, and this is just a brilliant man, but Andrew Huberman, world-renowned psychologist, absolutely just brilliant, has amazing guests on his podcast, really dives into like the science of it, but he has a really cool and unique way of making that content digestible, and so if you just want to learn a lot of really cool concepts and things about mental health, and the mind and performance, and that podcast is amazing. I think it's called the Huberman Lab. Yeah.
Yeah, mine would be from a perspective shift and everything. Man's Search for Meaning. I think that's a foundational book. Every year of my life, for the rest of my life, I will read that book. The self-help books that changed my life and are kind of a huge foundation of everything I do and work with guys on, especially guys, is No More Mr. Nice Guy and Wild at Heart. Those two books are foundational. Like, I would say some of the best self-help books out there, for men and women. But yeah, No More Mr. Nice Guy and Wild at Heart.
Nice. This is Corey Clark, the sales therapist, and Jen's Bundle of Momentum. I got one more question, and I'll let you guys go. I don't know if Josh has any more. Is that cool? All right. So, I think a big part of getting your mindset altered or changed or, evolved is getting to a destination where you can actually, have a week, have a few days, really get into it deep and really try to see, what's going on in your life and your career. And I know Jens has an amazing week retreat called Momentum Workshop that I know he does a lot of this. So maybe, Jens, I can get to you first. I know you've been doing it a few years now, right? So how's it work? Do you feel like having a destination a week? Because like Josh and I should say Josh invited me to the Solar Villa, and there was a amazing week in Dominican Republic where you could just see people's minds changing, and they now have a new train that they can use for now on in the rest of their life, and it sometimes takes that week. So like, what are you seeing, Jen? Is you seeing like that really helps having that week, or is it kind of like it's just more of a getting away from the family? Tell me your thoughts.
I mean, I think it's not always about the destination, it's about the environment that's created. And so it could be down the street or it could be across the world. I think there's merit in both. Like we do a Momentous Man program where we have 40 men come out and we do a 3-day retreat, and it's a 3-month
Oh
program.
yeah,
That's we go and we're on a ranch and do some really really cool stuff, work in internal work and then some adventure things. And for some, that's across the country. For some, that's just a city over. And then we do a momentum retreat that's for business executives and their spouses in Italy, where we go for a week out to Sardinia, Italy, and you're completely removed. And there is some special part of that, of where um, nearly every retreat we do that we've done in Italy, it comes up in the effort that it took to get there almost makes the experience more sacred.
yep,
And because where there's sacrifice being sacred, sacrifice makes things sacred. It's the root of it, right? To make something sacred is to sacrifice. And so I think there's merit in both sides. Most importantly, it's the environment created. However, there's merit in going to a destination like that, and because of the sacrifice there is an element of sacredness that's created with it, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, people always ask us when we're running Solar Villa, which is a week-long, pretty much boot camp, remote solar sales boot camp. Like, oh, why don't you just do it in Utah? Why don't you just do it where all these other conferences are? And for me, I've traveled the world so much, and just the sheer act of getting to a new place has always put me into a new mindset. It's like you can recreate yourself, even if it's just for a day or for a week. I really like that aspect to it because it's almost like they're coming in fresh, and they're motivated, and they can leave baggage behind. So I really like that aspect. What did you say? How did you explain it? It becomes sacred. Yeah, that's interesting.
Sacrifice of getting there makes it sacred.
But even just having that mastermind effect, just being around other people for that length of time, things change, relationships happen, right? Corey, are you doing destination retreats and trainings and workshops, or kind of what is your experience with it?
Yeah, I'm scaling a lot right now, and so that's actually what I'm repping right now. So it's called the Collective, but
Collective.
this is what we're kind of launching, and well, actually, it's launched. It's already going.
Right.
But we as well, we're doing
Where can they find
a
it?
50%. What's that?
Where can they find it if it's launched, baby?
It's social media, baby. Instagram, the sales therapist. Yeah. So we're actually gonna that'll end up just being my Instagram handle, and everything will kind of be now transitioned over to the Collective. So
Oh wow, okay.
but yeah, part of the Collective is a 50-person group that we're doing, and we're going to do retreats and have a lot of group stuff like that to be able to experience that. Because yeah, there's a lot of value in being able to get out of normalcy a little bit. It can allow your mind to expand and think and process things in a little bit of a different light. And so utilizing that tool for people, a lot of people like that right now, and it is really effective. And so obviously the work really comes even after those retreats, and being able to, when they're faced with those dilemmas again, being able to work through them effectively. But yeah, those retreats can really create a lot of clarity. And so that's kind of a big push that we're making too.
And you guys are traveling too, right, Jen? You traveling what, every day, every week now? How's London handle? London is his wife. How you guys handle? Oh, she's going with you now everywhere, right?
Yeah, she was. For the first year, she wasn't, so we saw each other like 4 times a month, which was not fun. I'm
That's hard.
super grateful that, for her support in that. That was huge. And then the year after that, she came with me everywhere, which was awesome. And now she's thriving in her own business, and so as travels are starting to pick up a lot, and so we'll be back on the grind of FaceTime and all that stuff, and connecting in different ways like that. So yeah, man, it's a blessing. It's something I absolutely love to be able to go and speak, and so it's fulfilling a dream. There's some hard parts about it, but I wouldn't trade it for sure.
I know, Corey, you mentioned earlier your Instagram handle. If anybody wants to reach out to you, they want to connect with you, what's the best way? Is it Instagram, or what's the other options?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the easiest way. Yep. There's all my links, all my things on that. Yep.
But I think there's like underscores in there, hyphens, right? What's the sales therapist? What is it?
Yeah,
not
if they just type in the sales therapist, I'll pop up. Yeah.
just match his face. Just look for his face.
Yeah, you'll see it. It'll pop right up, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do love your Instagram. I love your characters.
Thanks,
you
bro.
go back and forth. You gotta keep doing that. Jens, bro. Obviously, a lot of people already know what you're doing, but if they don't know, how can they reach out to you and connect, man?
Yeah, you can just type my name into Instagram, Jens Bunnell, Jenz, and then Bunnell with 2 L's. On Instagram, Facebook. Instagram is where most heavily, but LinkedIn, TikTok, we're on all platforms pretty much. Or you can go to momentumwe.com. You get all information there.
There you go, Josh. Anything else? You're muted,
he's
bro.
muted.
He's saying nope. He's got nothing. We hope you guys had a good time.
Like we're gonna be rocking for the next hour. Buckle in.
Thanks for coming on, guys.
You guys are awesome, bro. Really appreciate you guys. Peace.